We live in a world that's seemingly becoming more and more selfish every single day. Seems like most people out in the world are just finding some way to push themselves forward in any way possible, whether that be forward in their career, forward in the public's perception, or any other selfish motive. A couple of recent stories come to mind whenever I start thinking about this sentiment, and one of those stories happens to be the biggest story in Hollywood right now, and that's the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively lawsuit that's going on. Now, I'm not going to bother to dive too deep into the details of the story because I imagine that most of you who are actually interested in those details have already found them, and I imagine the other half of you who are watching this video likely don't care. But allow me to provide just a little bit of context just so all of this makes a little bit of sense. Most of you watching probably already know who Blake Lively is. She is an actress and wife of Ryan Reynolds. And most recently, she starred in a movie called It Ends With Us, which is based off a romance novel by the author Colleen Hoover. This is a movie and a book that has a heavy emphasis on domestic left and rights, if you will. A rather heavy topic, if you ask me. The director of this movie, Justin Baldoni, who also directed movies like Clouds and 5 Feet Apart, as well as being an actor himself, bought the rights to make this book into a movie adaptation. Blake Lively was cast in the main role, and Justin Baldoni was basically asked by the director themselves to play the other main character, who happens to be the domestic boxer. Baldoni bought the rights for the movie, funded the movie through his production company, and was in the director's chair, as well as starring in the movie. In any other circumstance, you would imagine a person like this in this position would have as much power as humanly possible on a movie set. But everything quickly changed whenever Blake Lively decided to take matters in her own hands and try to get as involved as she possibly could and by any means necessary. That meant taking on a executive producer role, which was not given to her. That meant changing the wardrobe and paying for the wardrobe through the production company and not out of her own pocket, and making a lot of decisions that she should not have made being just an actress in the movie. To make a long story short, after the production of this movie, Blake Lively came out and accused Justin Baldoni of SA and other various things that seemed just rather out of character for someone like Justin Baldoni. Obviously, when this production was finally complete, I imagine that Justin Baldoni was quite relieved to be able to close this chapter in his life, and then it was very swiftly reopened by Blake Lively via these accusations. Originally, Justin Baldoni had no plans on talking about the nightmare that was the It Ends With Us set, seeing as Blake Lively decided to take everything over, but rather he was just going to let things go and not talk about it and move on to the next chapter of his life. But Blake Lively had other plans. She had to make it about herself, and by any means necessary. She made these accusations, and of course Justin Baldoni and his team made quick action of refuting these accusations by having solid proof that was documented via text as well as video footage. And it's just absolutely baffling to me the absolute absurd level of narcissism or selfishness or whatever it is that this bit of ego got in the way to such a degree that they had to essentially try to destroy someone's entire public perception just to make themselves look good? You know, I really don't know what is to gain here because Blake Lively is married to Ryan Reynolds, best friends with Taylor Swift. I really don't know how much higher on the totem pole you can get, and Justin Baldoni's name didn't carry nearly as much weight as hers did, so by trashing this man's career, what really is there to gain? What benefit does she actually have by trying to annihilate this man's entire career? It's truly baffling to me that the society that we live in now is so selfish that we have to go as far as to potentially ending someone's career just to make yourself look good or feel good or whatever the end goal is here. It's really baffling how selfish and self-absorbed people have gotten in this day and age. Obviously, entertainment and Hollywood as a whole are the biggest offenders of this because everyone's just trying to get ahead and trying to climb their way up to Hollywood stardom or entertainment stardom, but it seems to be trickling into really every single facet of life these days. Someone's always just trying to get ahead, and a lot of people are cutthroat and willing to do it by any means necessary. And sometimes it's not even about getting ahead, sometimes just about getting what you want. Today there was some news that dropped surrounding one of my favorite YouTubers in the booktube scene, Daniel Greene. Now, it's still pretty early regarding these accusations, and we're definitely missing some context and a rebuttal from the other side, but there was some pretty damning evidence in favor of the assumed victim, that being the YouTuber Naomi King. On June 19th, 2023, Naomi King uploaded a video called A Conversation About Manipulation, Consent, and Assault. This was a video where she was just being rather vulnerable and talking about her experience regarding those three topics. In that video, she talks about her experience with all three of those things: manipulation, consent, and assault. She talks about the abuser and some of the tactics that they used to manipulate and what she went through as a whole, but she never once named the person. Now, if you want to know all the specifics, Naomi King uploaded a video just a couple days ago called "I Received a Cease and Desist from Daniel Greene." I will link that down below if you want to take a look. But essentially, she outlined the entire timeline of the cease and desist that followed, and essentially the admission of guilt from Daniel Greene, if you ask me. Very shortly after uploading that first video of hers, she received a cease and desist letter from Daniel Greene's lawyer, basically telling her that she needed to remove that video from her channel or else. Much like the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively case, Naomi King was very much so going to just let the things go that happened to her. She wasn't naming names in her initial video, and she was ready to move on entirely from the entire ordeal, but then it was brought back up by receiving that cease and desist letter. Now Daniel Greene has uploaded a video just today basically saying that none of this is true and he has the receipts to prove his innocence, but based on the information and story that we've received from Naomi King thus far, it's looking rather damning. Because if he was so innocent, then why did he send a cease and desist letter to her? She never named any names. She talked about a completely anonymous person, never even really giving a hint that it could have been Daniel Greene in the first place. In her most recent video, she details a friend vacation she was taking with Daniel where they were going to talk and hash out some things that they had going on between the two of them, and this vacation just so happened to fall on the 420 weekend. Naomi said that she was quite high as she was taking edibles during the weekend prior to Daniel's arrival at the hotel that they were going to be both staying at, and she communicated very clearly to Daniel that she was on edibles and was very much so high. Later on that night, she went back to their hotel room and was going to go to sleep, and she basically texted him, "Hey, if you want to stay awake, bring some coffee and I'm happy to talk." He flat out told her, "No, we'll just talk in the morning." But whenever he arrived at the hotel at around 12 o'clock at night, he climbed into the bed with her, started saying some rather vile things, and made some unwanted passes at her. According to Naomi, these were very clearly not consensual, and she was even saying that during this particular event, as it was occurring, she kept telling him no, but it didn't seem to stop him. I bring up these two most recent stories because, one, they're recent news stories and they're fresh on everyone's mind, but as I've been hearing stories like this, it's been making me think just how selfish we've become as a society. People just prioritize themselves over everything, and if that means doing things against other people's will or just to put another person down, then that's what they'll do. What happened to the golden rule that we all learned in school? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Is it really that hard to self-analyze and think about the decisions that you could potentially make and how they might affect another person or make them feel, or just any potential consequence that may come with them? Are we so far gone as a society that we're willing to just do whatever means necessary to get ahead or whatever makes us feel good in that moment, even if it's at the expense of another person? We hear these types of stories more and more every single day, and that's not to say that they're occurring more and more. I really don't know. For all I know, back in the day, these were happening just as often as they do now, but with social media being what it is, it's just easier to hear about how often these things are actually occurring in the modern day. And not all cases are as extreme as these two. Sometimes it's just as simple as cutting someone off on the freeway just so you can get to your exit just that much faster. Or it's cutting somebody off in the parking lot just so you can get the parking space that's 2 spots closer so you don't have to walk an additional 15 to 20 feet. I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea of putting yourself first, but that shouldn't be at the expense of everyone else around you. I don't understand how these people don't have a conscience and how that conscience doesn't tell them, ooh, hurting that person doesn't feel very good. I know myself, if I say the wrong thing to my wife in just a matter of minutes, the guilt is eating me alive and I have to go apologize. I can't handle that guilt for even more than a few minutes without having to feel like I need to go apologize and make amends, let alone try to destroy someone's entire career just to make myself feel good or have my way with someone just because I want to feel good for that one moment. Where are these people's moral compass? If this is the type of behavior that they think is acceptable or reasonable, then I wonder where they really draw the line at what's good and what's bad. It's absolutely baffling to me, the world that we live in and how much people value putting themselves first over others. There has to be some sort of healthy balance of not only putting yourself first, but putting other people first at the same time. That means choosing to park at the parking spot that's just a little bit farther so the elderly person that's behind you doesn't have to walk quite as far to get to the grocery store. That means living a life of fairness and consideration. In all honesty, I think it takes far more effort to be nasty and put yourself first that much than it does to just be a decent, reasonable human being. I don't talk about stories like this too often on my channel here, but These two stories frustrate me quite a bit because of how selfish the people involved are being. As great as this planet is and as wonderful as some people are, there really are some absolute bozos out there that are in the limelight for whatever reason. Anyway, after this long rant, I think I'm going to pick up my soapbox and take a hike. Bye now.